balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective with your host, me. Quite a bit of stuff. I've got a few things to talk about tonight, but realistically, I mean, the focus of the entire country has been on Springfield, Ohio. I don't think that town of roughly 60,000 residents prior to the 20,000 Haitians that got dropped on their asses has ever had this amount of American focus and interest across the United States. So anyway, let's go ahead and get things kicked off with tonight. The Pledge of Allegiance done by Ms. T of Texas. Sorry, Ms. T of Texas. So if you are of mine, please remove your hat, put your hand over your heart, and let's go ahead and follow along with Ms. T as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And of course, I thank you, Ms. T of Tex, along with all of my Whiskey Warriors when you send those in. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance send it in, record yourself doing it, of course, in your style, then take that audio file and email it to me. You can email it right to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans at americanperspective.online. And there you go. We can I'm laughing. The reason why I'm laughing and why I kind of screwed up the introduction is because Buddy Weiser, he has been a long time Whiskey Warrior, and he consistently tries to help me out as best he can. He does things like promotes the show on other shows. He goes and will ask in the Rumble chat, hey, has anybody not turned in their pledge for the Pledge of Allegiance and that kind of stuff? And he does a really good job with that. But it was kind of ironic because Ms. T of Tex, for those that don't know, she actually will lurk in both places. She shows up in Facebook land, and in case I have any kind of like technical difficulties between Facebook and Rumble, she'll show up in Rumble land. Well, tonight she showed up in Rumble land, and Buddy, of course, asked her, hey, did you send in your Pledge of Allegiance? And of course, it just happens that her number popped up for tonight. So that's why I was laughing. It's kind of, I love all my Whiskey Warriors. You guys are great. Every single one of you, P1s all the way through. That's just fantastic. So anyway, yeah. So, for those of you that don't understand how to do, the audio files, most of the time it's basically like a spoken or a voice note. And depending upon which platform you may have, there are applications that you can get or you can download, you can put on. There might even be one already on your phone to just, to essentially, you just hit record, say your stuff, hit stop, and then find the audio file and take that and email it off to me. And I can pretty much, for the most part, convert any kind of audio files into what I need to be able to do that stuff. So it's not as hard as what people think, but I understand there are those of us who are sometimes technologically challenged, and I completely understand that. It makes a lot of sense, there's a lot of us, and I'm going to answer that or put myself in that group. There's a lot of us older folks that tend to get a different issue. And yes, dual helix, that is exactly what I'm running right now. So there you go. No, actually, Mark over on Facebook asks if I do one. And I haven't. And the reason being that I don't is because of the fact this is for you. This is you guys. You guys listen to me talk, 58 minutes out of an hour or whatever it is. So yeah, it's just, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, dual helix Audacity, AUDACITY is possible to go ahead and do something like that in as well. But anyway, I don't want to get too much into the weeds on that, but just understand that it's available. It's available. So anyway. All right, let's go ahead and have our tonight's headliner sponsor to come in, and that is, of course, the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. That my affiliate link, once again, is IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's IOTC.AmericanPerspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this Saddleback, fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online. Take a look at this thing. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather. Nice, soft Saddleback leather right here. It wraps around pages that are tear and water resistant. And take a look at that binding. No cheap glue here that falls apart. This is stitched all the way through the pages and the outer leather. It has a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, where if something goes wrong with this thing, you can send it back to the manufacturer. And as soon as you do, they will either fix it or replace it for free. Go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online and pick it up. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will get you your civics badge in Scouts. It has rounded corners to prevent from poking into your rear end, or possibly even your upper chest pocket. Either way, it's got these rounded corners, great things. Christmas is coming up. They're great stocking stuffers. And because they're great stocking stuffers, you can give them to both your leftist lunatic friends as well as your conservative compatriots. Go to Constitution.AmericanPerspective.online, pick yours up today, and also don't forget to check out the Institute on the Constitution and the rest of their wonderful and fabulous materials, books, information, etc., etc. I thank them for allowing me to be an affiliate. So, there you go. All right. What am I going to say? Oh, yes. So there's been some back and forth. About Hang on just a second. Let's see. And oh, I need another dot in there. Got to make sure it's spelled correctly, and there we go. That should be it. All right. So now that I got that done, so there's been back and forth about another debate, and Trump is calling for third. Trump is calling this a third debate because technically he's got he's had the debate with the debate with Biden, the debate with Kamala Harris, and so he's considering one more being a third debate. Others are kind of saying that this is a second debate. The fact of the matter is it's another debate, and both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are talking about the debates, although Kamala Harris wants to have another one, which is kind of interesting because usually if you win, you don't necessarily need or realize the need to go ahead and have another one. But that being said, Donald Trump is basically saying, no, I'm not interested in doing another one. Okay. And he's sort of actually gone back and forth. Now, not by saying, no, I won't. Yes, I will. He's been saying, no, I won't. Well, I'm open to the possibility. And here's the thing. If Donald Trump and Kamala Harris can come to an agreement on another debate at what would be considered friendly for him, or potentially even, just to even things out, let's just say it's completely 100% on his side, which we all know that Kamala Harris is not going to want to do another one in those kinds of conditions. What she is going to be looking for is another one like what just happened, which of course is ABC giving her everything and allowing her to get away with everything and him to not be able to get away with jack crap. Now, all of that being said, I honestly don't think there's going to be another debate. And realistically, this debate, like most debates, not every debate, but like most debates, hasn't really done anything necessarily for either candidate, unless, of course, you're the ones that are standing in the middle of the social media nightmare that and bring it upon yourself to like always follow, or not necessarily follow, but always see the leftist lunatic social media posts about how she supposedly wiped the floor with him. Anyway, the point being is I don't see as there's really any reason to. We're under 50 some odd days to the election, and I really don't think it's going to happen. However, one question that has come out from this is the fact that, and based off of this piece in The Populist, the question is asked, could Trump's third debate refusal force Harris to conduct more interviews? Well, as much as we would love for that to happen, and believe it or not, she actually sat for one. I've got something on that here in just a minute. But because of the fact that this is a entire possibility, obviously she needs to get in front of people. And she needs to get in front of constituents more so than just her rallies, where all she is doing is just, talking all about all of the joy and all of the feels. Oh, you know what? Before I get too far into this topic, I went and screwed up. I did. I went and screwed up. But anyway, what I'm basically saying here is that Trump's refusing to do it really should force the mainstream media to go after Harris and get her involved, and get her into more and more interviews. And I'll explain more about that in just a second. But before I do, I screwed up, folks. I messed up because I missed the first the first segment of the program that always should happen on Saturday nights, and that is On This Day in American History. See, and what's sad, guys, is I had On This Day in American History, I had the book sitting right here in front of me, and I didn't pay attention. For On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac. It is written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. It is fully chocked. Look at how thick that is. It's fully chocked full with all kinds of factoids about this great nation that we call home. And tonight, for September 14th, one of my favorite presidents, this is going to talk a little bit about him, is the man in the arena. At 2:15 a.m. on September 14th, 1901, President William McKinley died in Buffalo, New York, from wounds left by an assassin's bullet. A few minutes after 3:30 p.m. on that same day, Theodore Roosevelt stood in the library of a friend's house in Buffalo and took the oath of office to become the 26th President of the United States. At age 42, he was the youngest man to ever assume the office. It is a dreadful thing to come into the presidency in this way, Roosevelt observed. Yet he woke the next morning ready to stride into the arena of history, exclaiming, "I feel bully." A friend once said that Roosevelt was a many-sided man, and every side was like an electric battery. Cowboy, explorer, naturalist, rough rider, author, politician, he was just the dynamo the young United States needed for a new century. Several years later, in a speech on citizenship in a republic, Teddy Roosevelt described his approach to governing and to life. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself for a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who knew neither victory nor defeat. That, ladies and gentlemen, is today's On This Day in American History. You know, if you get a chance, you should go and read some of the speeches that were made by former presidents and politicians. They pale in comparison to the ones that have been put together. The ones that have been put together today, I can tell you right now that they pale. They just pale in comparison. All right. Following that, of course, I also lost this to give you guys a chance. I am drinking the Walcott bourbon, Kentucky straight bourbon. And I know if Bonnie were here, which I don't know if I've seen her yet, but if Bonnie were here, she would be saying, no, that's not bourbon, but it is. It's bourbon. It is in my We the People glass, old-fashioned glass, tumbler, whatever. And of course, I've got my whiskey stones there in the bottom. You can see them. They're the dark black stones. And the We the People Lucky Shot USA.com glass is where it is. Oh. Okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'm answering a fan's request over on Facebook to post the email address that you send. And let me, correct that spelling for me. It's perspective, not perspective. Anyway, let's try that again. Fans at American perspective.online. That's right. fans.americanperspective.online. There we go. I think that's right. All right. So there you go. All right. So there was an interview that was done with Kamala Harris. Now, here's the thing. And I have one clip out of that interview and then some comments about the rest of it. But here, let's go ahead and listen to this one interview because, yeah, this is just bad. I'm sorry. I personally would think that, yeah, she needs to do more interviews because she did as bad as she did in the debates, which keep in mind, she did pretty bad in the debates. Regardless of what the left is trying to tell you, she never really answered a question. She said a whole bunch of lies, so on and so forth. But in this particular case, this gives you a really good idea as to how she cannot speak extemporaneously off script. Take a listen.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, you know? And I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity. And that we as Americans have a beautiful character. You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
Okay. So that clip was roughly a minute 30 long. I gotta ask the question. Did she actually answer the question? I mean, here, I'm going to back it up. And here's the question once again.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Okay, there's the question. Give me, essentially, one or two specific things that you are going to do in order to drop prices. In other words, give me one or two specific things that you're going to do immediately that will help the economy. She went off on essentially, and understand too, that's like the first 8 seconds. So, I mean, we'll give it, okay, it's 8 seconds long for him to get that question out. The rest of the minute and 22-second clip here is her talking about her growing up in the middle class, her appreciating, her growing up in places where they appreciated their lawns. And I believe there was something else at the very end. I don't even remember what it is. But, I mean, she can't, oh my gosh, she cannot freaking answer the question. The first thing she did is, well, let me start with this. I grew up in a middle-class home. Okay, great. Tell us what that means. What one or two specific things? And see, this is part of the problem. This is exactly what she did at the debate. This is exactly what she does every single time she gets into a situation where she cannot answer the question. And the problem is that the debate moderators should have immediately been like, that didn't answer the question. Can you please answer the question? Give me one or two specific examples of what you are going to do in order to lower prices. Seems like a pretty simple question to me. Seems like a pretty simple, straightforward. I don't want to hear a story about how you grew up with people who love their lawns. Yeah. So, again, I am completely lost in terms of what she actually said. And this is specifically who she is. This is who she is. This is who she deals with. This is what she does on a regular basis. Now, that interview, which was a local television station in Philadelphia, I think it was ABC News 6. So Buddy was correct. It was an ABC News television station. But it's kind of interesting that the interviewer, and again, keep in mind, when you interview somebody, yes, you are supposed to let them speak. But I need to be able to understand and get the answer to the question that I'm asking. And so this is part of the reason why I actually think I would be a great debate moderator, because rather than calling you out necessarily for your lies, although I probably would do that too, especially if they were extremely egregious, I would basically look and say, okay, well, you just wasted 2 minutes of my time and everybody else's time not answering the question. Can you please answer the question? ... Or I might be preemptively jumping in and going, all right, you've spent the last minute telling me all of this other stuff. Can you please answer the question? Because that's what's needed. That literally is what's needed. And in that particular instance, she went to this interview and she apparently, I didn't see the entire interview. I mean, just that clip by itself is probably, pretty good. But here's the thing. According to this Washington Examiner post, there were 4 key takeaways that came from Harris's first solo campaign interview, and these should not be of any surprise to any of my whiskey warriors, nor should it be surprised by anyone with half a functioning brain. And here you go. Number 1, there was literally no new explanation of policies. She doesn't have them. She doesn't have them. Now, one thing I do have to question, because and actually Bam brought this up too. Bam points out that her hands know more than she does. She moves them a lot. Now, I come from my family. My wife is a good portion Italian, and so my family has a very habit of speaking with our hands. I'm not quite so much as what they are, but still close enough. So I understand the whole hand thing. But here's the thing: is that realistically, and especially in this particular case, she's given us nothing. She hasn't told us anything. And if you look at her body language, you listen to her voice, her mouth was extremely dry because she was smacking a lot. You can hear that especially when somebody gets really, really nervous and their mouth goes dry, you can hear how they're smacking and popping and, or in the case of Nancy Pelosi, trying to refit her dentures. But also too, if you look at her eyes look low and to her right, which is low and to the left to those of us who are looking at her. And that indicates that she's accessing a certain portion of her brain. Now, the part that I don't recall, and I'll have to look up, but I believe that if you look down and to the left as you're looking at that person, if they go down and to the left, that indicates that you're accessing the creative centers of the brain, meaning that you're trying to come up with a creative way or a non-truthful way to answer the question. And so, again, I'm not a body language expert, but it would be interesting to listen to some people who are, like they had said about her being in the debates, how she started off very nervous, very stressed, very uptight. And then eventually, after her hound dogs that were David Muir and I don't even know the other lady's name, when they started going after Donald Trump, well, she got more and more relaxed, which allowed her to go further and further. And by the way, Buddy points out, I don't think her family was middle class. They weren't. They were actually in the upper level, what would be considered upper middle class. I'm not repeating that. The upper middle class for what would be considered up in Canada, I guess. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of the situation there. Continuing on, there were plans for elevated spending. She touted herself as a new generation of leadership in contrast to President Joe Biden, saying repeatedly that she wants to develop an opportunity economy. But an opportunity economy is what? Well, she reiterated her previous campaign messaging, which of course she laid out her plans for the $6,000 child tax credit for the first year of the child's life. Keep in mind, Trump already started with a $5,000 one. Uh-oh. Sorry, my camera. I got to be careful with that. A $5,000 one. And she also talked about a $50,000 tax deduction for new businesses. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how that would work. But anyway, and an offer of $25,000 in assistance for new home buyers. All of these, of course, would result in higher government spending. None of her ideas, even though she claims that her approach is about new ideas, all of her ideas are not necessarily new policies. They are basically government handouts, which is exactly what the Biden administration has been doing. Now, remember in the debate how she said that she wasn't coming to take your guns? Do you remember how she said in the debate, because Donald Trump said that she was coming to take her guns? She goes, I'm not coming to take your guns. I'm a gun owner myself, and so is Tim Walz. Well, guess what? Even though she mentioned that the fact that she and her running mate are gun owners and support the Second Amendment, she went ahead and pushed and mentioned that she should be pushing for certain restrictions. Now, I've gone through the Second Amendment on this program. I've told you what the Second Amendment says. It doesn't take long to read because it's one of the shortest amendments that we have in the Constitution. And it ends with this wonderful, fantastic, very clear statement, which I could say because it's memorized, but I will read it to you out of my wonderful Constitution right here, my copy of my Saddleback leather-bound Constitution. And it says at the very last, comma, shall not be infringed. Seems to me that the founders were very clear. You're not changing the right of the people to keep and bear arms. End of story. So I'm not exactly sure where she's going to be coming up with this stuff, but that's what they do. And, she's claiming that, of course, that, all of this, and by the way, she's been advocating for an assault weapons ban. I'm not exactly sure where she's coming up with this whole assault weapons ban. It didn't work before. It won't work again, so on and so forth. So, anyway, Then she also went through and talked about, rather than talking about how she is the chosen candidate, how she should be the one to get your vote, she just repeats about all of her beliefs about why voters don't want Trump. Well, okay, that's great. You can tell us all day long how voters don't want Trump. Fine. But what would make us want you? Again, it's not. Yeah. Anyway, so that pretty much kind of summed up the entire interview. Yeah. It's just, it's sad. It really is sad because we have people in this country who have no idea who she is, what she stands for, or anything else. And, yeah, it just doesn't seem to make any difference. Now, Picaric points out the $50,000 tax deduction for businesses would work for bigger or small businesses. You're right. But she doesn't think that it would help financially anyone. Again, you're correct. I'm a small business owner. I own the production company for this broadcast. It's called Active Eye Media. You listen to it at the end of every broadcast. Wholly owned subsidiary of Active Eye Media LLC. That's me. That's my company. Guess what? It didn't cost me $50,000 to get it underway, and it also didn't. I'm not going to be able to claim $50,000 on my taxes for this organization yet. I'm not even big enough yet. By the time I get big enough, and by the time I'm actually making money, that $50,000 is probably going to be gone. This is just crazy. Just absolutely crazy. So anyway, all right, let's take a second before I move on, because I did miss a sponsorship spot, but let me go ahead and tell you about it. You see this wonderful shirt that I'm wearing, this fantastic, this is the Mount Rushmore shirt. You can see Mount Rushmore right over here. The Mount Rushmore shirt from theflagshirt.com. That's right, theflagshirt.com. There they are, theflagshirt.com, and they have all kinds of patriotic styles that they're setting up for fall. Fall is coming. I'm telling you, today it was kind of chill and rainy here in the Pacific Northwest, in the western half of the Pacific Northwest. And I can tell you that grabbing that comfy sweatshirt and putting it over you and getting all cuddled in and everything, we're going to be getting close to where I'm going to actually have to start, lighting the fires in the wood stove to heat this place up. But before I do that, take a look at all these patriotic styles. We've got quarter zip half shirts. We've got for some men in red, white, and blue. You've got hoodies for the ladies. We got hoodies for men. We got all kinds of stuff. Head on over to theflagshirt.com and take a look at all their styles that are available. Men's, women's, kids, made in the USA stuff. This is a veteran-owned operation. And believe it or not, they're actually based out of Florida. So all you Florida folks, you could probably go to theflagshirt.com and get your stuff within a couple of days. For me, it takes about a week and a half. But anyway, if you order $75 or more on their site, okay, what they will do is give you free shipping. But I know a lot of people can't order $75 worth of product. So what I've done is I've secured a code, and a place for you to get that code is flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, where you can get a code that you can enter in at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get that promo code. Stick it in the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and you'll get $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com, check out all of their styles, and get yourself patriotized. All right. So, the residents of Springfield, Ohio, now are starting, and the story is starting to actually come into a little bit more focus. Now we have had some claims. I'm just going to say they're unsubstantiated by some of the residents where some of the animals are being eaten and so on and so forth. I do know, though, that there have been people who have seen these people and have claimed to see these people, and these people would be, doing it in a court of law, potentially, because they've done it at these committee meetings and these community meetings and these, for the councils, the town councils and stuff. They've been saying about it. And so anyway, what's happening, though, is much more beyond that whole thing. In terms of the animals, yes, the animals are bad, but what's worse is just the impact of this town. You've got to understand, a town with the residency of no more than 60,000 people essentially got hammered with a third of their size with all these Haitian aliens that were bussed and planed in. And the thing about it is, again, as I explained on my program last night, in order to have temporary protected status, you have, and in order for it to actually even be effective, the main reason to have a TPS is because of the fact that the TPS itself is designed to prevent deportation for people who have either A, come here and entered without inspection, or EWI, which is essentially they didn't come in through a port of entry. They didn't see a border patrol or immigration person. They essentially got here unknown in terms of how they got here or where they came from or what kinds of documents they actually have to even prove their existence in the other place. And then the other thing is that it provides, because of the positioning for that country, in the case of Haiti, you have two things. You have the, some of the earthquakes and things that they've had in the past. And then also now you have the entire government upset where the gangs took over not too long ago. We did talk about it. And what ended up happening here is gaining temporary protected status allows you to avoid deportation, regardless of whether your visas run out or any of those other things. Because if your visa runs out, you have to go back to the home country before you can apply and get it re-upped back here. Okay. So then what you end up with is, even if your status has expired here, you're under that temporary protective status, and that keeps you here, allowing you to stay here, but it also allows you to apply for work permits and things like that. Now, this is the claim that the left keeps saying, is that there were so many job openings in Springfield, Ohio, that they needed the Haitians. The Haitians showed up just in the nick of time, and boom, everything is so copacetic and happy. Well, it's not. It's not even close. So the Epoch Times, which to me is one of the more centrist, not always, but more central, sent in or asked some questions of some people, and here's the top things that they were talking about. So, number one is the fact that the two of the people that they interviewed, that Epoch Times interviewed, live on separate sides of Springfield, but both of them notice gradual changes to their neighborhoods in the city And the city, of course, is midway between Dayton and Columbus. And it all started about 3 years ago. And what they said was, at least one of them in particular, said, longtime residents who I used to see were no longer there. They moved out, and the Haitian migrants moved in. They don't speak English. I started to see a lot of foot traffic on the streets, and you could see a dozen or more people coming and going from the houses. It was clear that there were a lot of people living in the houses. This is from Rhonda Zimmers. Skinner, who serves with Zimmers on the city's Board of Zoning Appeals, observed a similar transition in her own neighborhood. Skinner said, we used to know everyone. Mostly everyone got along, but then we started to see more turnover on our street. We no longer knew many of our neighbors. It used to be a quiet and peaceful place to live. Now we have several houses where several Haitian families are living in a home intended for only one family. And sometimes we get harassed by people who are yelling at us in a foreign language. We have to be more cautious. This is not the Springfield I once knew. Now, several of the factories shut down decades ago. Springfield's population declined to less than 60,000 until the last few years. An estimated 15,000 to 20,000 Haitian migrants have arrived here over that span. Now, I've got a question. I have a question on that. How would nobody in America even knows about Springfield, Ohio. How the hell would Haitians from an entirely other country, other culture, have any particular clue as to what Springfield, Ohio is and why they would need to be there? How would they even know? Well, what ended up happening, apparently, is that these people just got dumped in the city. And many of the conversations were confined, as far as what was happening, to Springfield and Clark County until the presidential debate. But at an August 27th city council meeting, some residents alleged that Haitians were actually killing cats, dogs, ducks, and geese for food. Okay, so that's what they're basically dealing with. Okay. And that got perpetuated, of course, throughout the social media circles. It even made it all the way up to Trump. Now, city officials and police have said that they haven't received reports of Haitians eating animals. Now, hold up on that, because even though Springfield's strategic engagement manager, Karen Graves, mentioned there have been no credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the migrant community, a short time later, on September 11th, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost said in a post on X, literally, there is a recorded police call from a witness who saw immigrants capturing geese for food in Springfield. Can these government people ever get their mind together? And Dave Yost also mentioned about the citizens testifying to the city council about the incidents, and he said in that same X, he says, these people would be competent witnesses in court. Why does the media find a carefully worded City Hall press release better evidence? This is coming from the Ohio Attorney General, folks. All right. But all of that aside, you need to understand that coming and dropping the just 20,000 people in a short period of time. So let's just, again, 1/3 of the population has been replaced in a matter of 3 years. And they've been dropped in there without any help from the federal government. Okay. So again, These are, understandably, these are growing pains. Having these people just show up out of nowhere without the support structures in place to be able to help them and keep them going is the part of the problem. So I just don't understand. Now, don't get me wrong here. The next pieces in regards to the 2 elementary schools being evacuated, the middle school being closed, information received where it was bomb threats and things of that nature. Okay. You have to understand that these people, that is wrong. First of all, that's wrong. For these people to go and do that, that is completely wrong. But also, it's a systemic symptom of the fact that you went and dumped these people into the middle of a town that wasn't prepared for it, and you are offering absolutely no assistance from the federal government in doing so. Now, one of the residents, Skinner, pointed out this wasn't put to a vote. We didn't ask for this, and our city leaders did not put proper infrastructure in place to prepare for the migrants and to address the challenges it would cause for the residents who are U.S. citizens. The Department of Homeland Security, of course, extended the temporary protection status and also made that the country, it listed the country at the U.S. Embassy as a level 4 do not travel because of crime, kidnappings, poor health care, infrastructure, and unrest. So under the TPS, according to the city of Springfield, immigrants are legally qualified to receive financial assistance, health nutrition services, employment, education services, and housing services. Since immigrants granted TPS must apply for an employment authorization document that can take up to several months to receive, that's something they don't tell you. They may need assistance until they can legally seek employment. So because the wheels of the government move slow, these people are given government assistance from the state, not the federal, but the state, in order to make this stuff happen. Now, Springfield itself, admittedly, according to the article here, had a small population, Haitian population, before 2021, when the illegal border entries began to break records. Shortage of entry-level and blue-collar workers made the city an ideal destination, especially because of its low cost compared to other major metro areas. A Japanese auto parts manufacturer called Tupri expanded in 2022, which drew a bunch of Haitian migrants. While the companies needing to fill vacant positions welcomed the surge, challenges escalated in the city. So it continued. Of course, the cultural differences between the residents and the migrants have resulted in tension. Kyle Kohler, who is a former state representative in the district that represents Springfield, and he's a candidate for state senate right now that covers those 3 counties, Clark County, which is where Springfield is located. He said, they don't understand our laws. They don't understand some of our customs. We don't understand some of their customs. And that clashes, and the overwhelming amount of people that have come at one point has really caused some issues. So apparently, according to Kohler, Haitian migrants in Springfield receive between $600 and $1,600 a month on debit cards through the Refugee Cash Assistance Program. They can also access public assistance programs that are available to U.S. citizens. As of this month, he said, Our local job and family services has registered over 20,000 Haitian refugees in our county and city, Springfield, which has a steady population of like 58,000. Now all of a sudden has an additional 20,000 new residents in and around Springfield. 20,000 people in just under 4 years. And he also said that the public school system now has more than 1,600 non-English speaking students. Okay, they're not going to have enough teachers to be able to keep up with this. See, this is the problem. You flew in all these people and you just have no infrastructure prepared for them. This is the problem. Now, Governor Mike DeWine apparently announced earlier this week that he is dedicating $2.5 million toward expanding primary care access for Springfield residents. He has directed the Ohio Department of Health to work with Clark County Health Department and other healthcare providers. Yeah. So the reason why DeWine is doing this now, I'm telling you right now, is because of the fact that he is under pressure from everything else. Yeah. But it's not just this. You also have the sending in of the state patrol to help deal with all of the traffic accidents that are happening. And Yost by himself, who again, he's the AG of Ohio, says, how many people can they be expected to take in? What are the limits of the federal government's power? Could the federal government simply funnel into Ohio all the millions of migrants flooding in under the current administration's watch? And so he is ordering an investigation into ways to halt what he describes as extreme population growth attributed to all these migrants moving to Springfield. So he's actually going to try and do something. And he says the problem is not the migrants. It's way, way too many migrants in a short period of time. Well, that's exactly it. Now, there was a local accident where 11-year-old Aiden Clark was killed in a TC, a traffic accident, that involved a Haitian migrant. The boy was aboard a school bus that collided with a minivan that crossed over a dividing line driven by a person who I'm not going to name. He was sentenced to 9 and 13.5 years in prison for first-degree felony involuntary manslaughter and fourth-degree felony vehicular homicide. Again, this goes back to the whole point. These people don't understand our customs. They don't have licenses. Reports are that many of these people are gaining permits, temporary permits, but they're not going back and getting their licenses. It turns out that he actually also apparently had an unregistered car. Now, Nathan Clark, who is Aiden's father, has come out and chastised conservative politicians for using his son's death, for political gain. And he basically says that his son wasn't murdered. He was accidentally killed by an immigrant from Haiti. I'm sorry, Mr. Clark. I'm going to have to disagree with you. I understand that is your position, but if that Haitian immigrant was not here in the first place, or if that Haitian immigrant had bothered to follow our laws and get their driver's license and get their car registered and work on assimilating before he started driving into the environment, I don't think your son would be dead today. Just saying. Anyway. Also, too, right after her 71st birthday, a Springfield grandmother, Kathy Heaton, was killed by a car driven by a Haitian migrant, struck her while she was gathering garbage cans. Prosecutors decided that the driver of the car was not going to be charged. Why? That doesn't go. Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. The car that Lewis was operating was the one that had expired plates on it, not the original one. I'm just, folks, when you import a whole bunch of people who are not familiar with our ways and just drop them onto an unsuspecting locale, you're going to have problems. You're going to have issues. Now, one resident who asked to remain anonymous told the Epoch Times that there are several accidents every day, and she's seen cars drive into buildings, onto sidewalks, go the wrong way down one-way streets, make U-turns right in the middle of the road, run over street signs, and go into yards. As Zimmers, who was one of the two originally, said they get behind the wheel with little or no education and training about driving laws here, and many of them don't even understand English to be able to read the street signs. Again, this is part of the problem. Now, another issue that has popped up, which is a serious issue, by the way, in the fact that the Springfield residents are being displaced as landlords triple the rent prices to accommodate Haitian migrants. And this isn't somebody talking out their butt about this. This is from a resident of Springfield, Ohio, who works with the homeless. And he stated at this committee meeting or community meeting that, again, the city commission meeting, that locals are being displaced from their homes, incentivizing landlords to prioritize immigrants over existing residents. Let's listen to what he has to say.
The homeless problem. I don't know of a single homeless Haitian in this town because they all got vouchers. But I can show you a whole bunch of people that have been displaced because I'm that guy. Rob, you know, for 25 years I've worked with the homeless in this community. You know, a lot of people don't know because I'm not the guy out there blowing the horn because it ain't about me. It's the Jesus in me that goes out there and does it. Trust me, there's days I'm tired. But I'll get into homeless camps that nobody in a suit and tie will walk into. None. They trust me because I've never let them down. You know, and guys, if you don't think it's here right now, in October, we are getting ready to hit a wall here. There is not any relief for the homeless. The homeless people in this community are not the people you think they are. The squatters that aren't happening. It's not there. There's veterans. Come see me. I'm not real hard to find. Ask anybody on the street. They'll tell you how to get a hold of me. I'll take you there. And no, they don't want your toothpaste and your peanut butter sandwiches. They want you to come up with a solution to why they're displaced, why they lived in a house. I personally know, and I'll testify under oath, my hand to God, somebody that lost their house. They were there 7 years. The landlord said, hey, I need you to move out, find a temporary place. I'm going to remodel it, and then you can come back.
Thank you,
It was a
Barry.
lie. They moved him out, tripled the rent.
Thank you. Thank you
Follow
for
the
speaking.
money.
There you go. So that gentleman, of course, you know, who works with the homeless, clearly stated, hey, you know, this is a problem. And they went ahead and cut him off there at the end. This is just a disaster waiting to happen. Well, now it's even stepping one step further, because now the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, who's the Ohio Secretary of State, issued this memorandum 2 days ago. Secretary of State Frank LaRose announced today that his election integrity unit has issued a warning to Ohio's 88 county boards of elections after an investigation uncovered the use of illegal voter registration forms by a government agency. This is a reminder to all of our elections officials to be vigilant as we enter the final weeks of voter registration eligibility for 2024. We continue to aggressively pursue third-party groups and paid canvassers who have been submitting fraudulent registration forms, and we're cracking down on the use of illegal forms that aren't authorized by my office as the law requires. Okay. So he's doing an investigation into where these things came from, and they're translated into the Haitian Creole language. Seriously? If you don't think that they're trying to get illegals to vote in elections, this is one example of it. This is in Ohio, which is supposed to be a Republican state, locked up Republican state. Telling you people, they are working on replacing us. They are looking at replacing us. That's what they're going to do. Well, good news came out. Apparently, Trump is claiming that he will do mass deportations in Springfield and Aurora if he is elected president, of course. Now, I'm not exactly sure how he's going to get away with that, with the TPS in place and so on and so forth. But the reality of it is that, yeah, he's at least announcing that he's going to do this. And I'm sorry, I'm taking a look right here on my work phone because, of course, I am on call and we've got something going on. So I got to see and make sure what it is. Excuse me for just a second while I look. Okay, so anyway, all right. I'll have to jump on that afterward. I don't need to pay attention to it now. Okay, so that is another thing that's happening. So let's get back to the debate because there's been a couple comments and questions. There's been some references to a possibility that Kamala's earrings look awfully suspicious and look very similar to, if not strikingly, resembling a new product that is apparently being worked on, where it is an actual wireless earbud. At this point, there's no corroboration to that. In fact, they're claiming that they're even Tiffany's and Company because there is, a similar earring that is Tiffany's and Company. So I'm not going to lend credence necessarily to the idea that this startup, this Kickstarter campaign company actually had a set of earrings made for the vice president. But that being said, it is possible. I'm not saying it's probable, but it is possible. The other possibility that's been tossed around is the fact that there is supposedly a whistleblower who is claiming at this moment that the questions were handed over to the Kamala Harris campaign as sample questions, but those questions that went to sample questions didn't really change to the actual questions or didn't really change any. So technically, if you go with that, her sample questions were the actual questions. So there is some question there as to whether or not that's going on. Well, to pile on to all of this, there's now a former Clinton pollster who was actually disturbed by what occurred on the ABC News debate stage. Here in Town Hall, this former Clinton pollster named of Mark Penn discussed his concerns on Fox News. And when did this come out? This came out on September 13th, so it would have been September 12th, 2 days ago. Adding that he felt that the pair, meaning the pair of moderators, damaged the institution for presidential debates. You think? Even a pollster, well, he was aghast, and he thought that the results should be tossed, since to him it was clear that the moderators, David Muir and Lindsay Davis, put their finger on the scale. Now, Penn is curious about what might have happened if the moderators had actually pushed back on Harris's lies, and he calls out a few. One being the Charlottesville lie about the fine people on both sides hoax. The hoax about the bloodbath is another one. Both of those are completely untrue and completely false. The idea of Trump signing a national abortion ban when he has clearly stated multiple times that he opposes a national abortion ban, that he favors IVF, and has even said that the government should be paying for IVF. I personally don't agree. I'm a strict constitutionalist. There's nothing in the Constitution that talks about anything about the federal government being responsible for anyone's health care. You can make an argument for the military. I'll grant you that. But for the general public, I don't believe there is a constitutional purpose for that. Now, all of that together, he says that had the moderators turned to Ms. Harris after these lies and said, that has been debunked, he states we might be having a totally different conversation about the debate, given how she tends to react when challenged. We would be saying she was having a good night until she couldn't help herself and went too far. Mr. Trump would have been freed from having to spend so much time defending himself against false charges, and the country would have gotten to hear more about his plans for America. He continues on and says, time and again, we find that supposedly neutral democratic institutions have been corrupted by bias. Debate moderators must check their biases and seek to be scrupulously fair, or they shouldn't do the job. They should observe strict rules and come from a variety of networks. Most importantly, they shouldn't interfere, but rather trust voters to make their own decisions. ABC undermined the system for everyone. Now think about that for a second. This is a Clinton pollster, Hillary Clinton, back in 2016. And even he is saying that the debate was unfair. There you go. There you go. Well, all of this discussion about the debate and whether or not it was fair or not has kicked off a target from a GOP senator. He's making inquiries into the debate. Senator Roger Marshall, according to the Washington Examiner, vowed on Friday to investigate claims that the ABC News debate moderators were biased against former President Donald Trump and coordinated with Vice President Kamala Harris ahead of the debate. So he's going to look into it. Don't know if that's going to come of anything. So Marshall, despite the network's denial that they did anything, Marshall pledged that he would send a letter to ABC and the Harris campaign demanding all correspondence, records, and potential coordination between the two parties ahead of Tuesday's presidential debate. The network, of course, did not respond to a request from Washington Examiner for comment. The Harris campaign also declined to comment. Yeah. So, I mean, anybody with a brain could look at that and know that the ABC moderators were clearly in the Kamala Harris camp. In fact, it was even noted before, even on this program, I told you about the fact that Muir, however you want to pronounce his last name, had given 100% favorability or favorable coverage to Kamala Harris and 89% unfavorable to Donald Trump. That's just the way the game has been played, apparently. All right. Really quickly, apparently dumping DEI can be profitable. Why do I say that? Well, this in the University of North Carolina Daily Tar Heel. The UNC system announces a multi-million-dollar cut for their DEI positions and programs. You got to check this thing out. I don't know where they came up with this money, but oh my gosh. So they went through and apparently eliminated a whole bunch of roles within the School of Education, the School of Information, Library of Sciences, School of Medicine, Adams School of Dentistry, school after school after school. They also cut out many other positions and stuff as well, all under the idea that they are looking to cut down costs for the students. That's their ultimate goal. So across the system, and here it is in writing right here, okay? Across the system, 59 total positions were eliminated. Information from the meeting showed that a total of 131 realigned positions, which resulted in a $16 million redirected savings, meaning $16 million were redirected elsewhere, and over $17 million reported savings. You believe that? $17 million saved just by getting rid of all of the DEI crap. And you think that that the government can't do any of this? If the government got rid of all of their DEI stuff, I bet our taxes would have a nice cut. DEI, go woke, go broke. All right, folks. I have a wonderful story for you tonight. And I want to get to it. It is part of a part of my special series, segments that I do. And it's called the Highlight America section. Oops. Sorry. There we go. There it is, Highlight America. So tonight for Highlighting America, we have a very special young man. He was apparently diagnosed with some serious brain disorders and growth disorders. And one of the things, he just had a birthday, and one of the things that he apparently received, well, I'll let you hear about that. This guy, bring up this guy, and I'll let you hear about what this young man received for his birthday.
Carefully. Can you read it? Out loud? Yeah. Sure. It says, Dear Liam, happy 8th birthday. Mrs. Trump and I hope you enjoy this special occasion surrounded by the love of your family and friends. We are so encouraged by the strength and determination you have shown throughout your young life and send our love and best wishes to you as you continue to fight. Remember, you are never alone, and we are keeping you in our thoughts and prayers for continued care and good health. May God bless you and your family. Stay strong. Sincerely. Can you tell me who signed that? He knew it was your birthday coming up? What do you say to him?
Thank you. I love you.
What else do you say?
Thank you.
Donald Trump. And granted, I mean, let's be honest, he did actually have the signature on the bottom. You can see it in the video when he pulls the letter out of the envelope. But Donald Trump apparently took time out of his day to at least sign the paper. And send this kid a letter wishing him a happy birthday. Now, I got to tell you, people, you know, Ronald Reagan was known at one point to have gone and handwritten notes to people during his presidency. That is what a president does. That's what a true president does. And that just made that kid's day. He will remember that for the rest of his life. I mean, I wrote a letter with my elementary school class. I believe I was in 4th grade or 5th grade, and I sent a letter to Ronald Reagan, along with the rest of my class. And while we did not receive letters back, like handwritten letters back, we did receive form letters that came back with his signature on it, or at least it looked like it was. It may have been a facsimile. I mean, to be honest with you, probably what happened was the teacher received the letter and then she just made a copy for all of the students. But I can still remember that letter. I don't know where it is right now. I wish I had it someplace. I probably do someplace. But I still remember receiving that letter and having a copy of it. I even framed it at one point. I just don't know where the frame and everything went. It's probably in storage someplace. But, yeah, that kid is going to remember that for the rest of his life. And you could tell just by the fact that at the very end he was crying because someone that he admires, former president of the United States, took time out of his day to send a letter to that young man. And especially considering some of the health issues that he was dealing with, well, that's America for you. That's the way America needs to be. All right. Before I go, I've got a couple things. First of all, I do have a question of the week. But before I get into that, I just want to point out Axios, the left-wing organization, puts out puts out in their newsletters, their magazine, whatever the hell it is. And they point out here, and this is how headlines in the left get you in, they suck you in, and they actually are lying to you. So here, just to give you an idea, this is Axios. And Axios basically stated in their headline, mortgage rates to reach new low for 2024 before expected rate cut or Fed cut. Now, I've told you over the last couple of days that the Fed is expected to do about 1/4 point cut in the overall interest rates. But here's the thing. When you take a look at the graph that's a part of this, yes, it is the lowest for 2024, okay? However, when you look at the graph right over my head, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here on the bottom part, this is where it bottoms out. This comes from originally 2020. Now, 2020 is to the left as you're looking at this dip. It's on the left. And yet it was low for a little bit through 2020 and almost into 2021. And then all of a sudden, kabam, it raises. Just goes straight up like a freaking canyon wall. And then kind of hovers and pops around for, about 2 years, let's say. And then hits 6.2% is what it's showing at the very end. Yeah. They also talked about how the interest rate cut is going to help you on your credit cards. They had an article on that too. But when you read down into the article, it says, oh, it's going to take probably 3 or 4 billing cycles in order for it to actually show up. And again, we're talking about 0.25%. So they're trying to influence you into thinking that we're in a position where we're just, the economy is awesome. But yet when you look at graphs like this, you're like, not really. Because if you look to the left on the screen here, that was all the Trump years. And they're all lower. Even the high points in the Trump years are lower, much lower than the high points in the Biden years. So that's the question that you have to ask yourself. When you go to vote in November 5th, am I better off today than I was during the Trump years? All right, folks, let's go ahead and get to the question of the week. All right, and tonight's question of the week is a news submittal. This is fantastic. I do appreciate this. This is coming in from Becky down in the Australia land and facilitated by the Venerable Coco from Rumble land. So Becky and Coco write, "Hi, Whiskey. I hope this finds you well and with stout spirits." Good on you for picking up Buddy's salutation. Our question is, with all the potential election interference being committed by the Democrats going after Trump, why hasn't a state or county or anyone gone after the Democrats for election interference, and more broadly with trying to import migrants as potential voters? I hope this will give you a question for Whiskey for this week. It's question of the week, but question for Whiskey like that. And then she says, "I love your show," from your Australian contingent. And then, of course, Becky and Coco. Well, here's the thing. There were actually several cases, especially after 2020, that were brought in multiple courts around the country. The majority of those, and we're talking, if I recall correctly, it's like over 300 cases across the country. The problem is that only 60 actually got through the initial phases. And of those 60 that came in, the majority of those got tossed out by what's called standing. Now, standing consists of 3 parts. Part number 1 is essentially whether or not the people bringing the lawsuit were actually harmed by the actions taken by the plaintiff. In other words, did the plaintiff break the law? Part number 2 is whether or not the court itself has the means to be able to provide restitution. And then again, number 3 is whether or not the courts can actually really have any jurisdiction doing anything about it. The problem here is the fact that most of the courts, the majority of the courts, basically chickened out and said, you know what, elections, and there is a constitutional argument for this, but elections reside specifically within the state legislatures and partially, very small part, with Congress. And that's the way the Constitution reads it. Also, too, the state of Texas sued the state of Pennsylvania in 2020 for Pennsylvania's changing of their laws in order to create, illegally, by the way, because the courts changed the laws, not the state legislature. And Texas claimed that Pennsylvania had disenfranchised Texan voters because of Pennsylvania's changes in their laws and potential election shenanigans in that state. Problem is was that the Supreme Court basically tossed that out due to standing. Now, what's occurring now, which, by the way, the state of Texas and the Texas AG, and I can't think of his name, Ken Paxton, I think is his name, he has brought a couple lawsuits that are starting right now, that are potentially going to, have to deal with elections. You also have Dominion voting machines had some things. There was a Georgia case where the elections commission admonished Fulton County. So there are places where the courts have actually won, and there's constant court cases going on where they're talking about voter IDs and so on and so forth. There was a recent case actually in Pennsylvania that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court basically said that yes, the dates have to be on the ballots. They have to be dated properly or they can't be counted. So there's a lot of stuff that is going on, and it's all over the place, but it's not necessarily specific Democrats versus Republicans. But realistically, it's the GOP and the Republican Party against the Democrat Party in the courts system in the states, the Democrat-led states, that there are things that are going on all over the place. I may not be reporting on them all, but I do try to find them when I can. And it is happening. It's just American jurisprudence is very, very slow and very meticulous, and it takes a long time. And even then, again, you've got to understand, some court cases, like for an example, the Fannie Willis case, a couple of charges just got thrown out because the judge has deemed that Fannie Willis did not have jurisdiction to be able to bring those charges against Donald Trump. And we're talking over 4 years now, or almost 4 years now. So it's taking a very long time for this stuff to filter through the system. And that's, even though we are guaranteed the right to a quote unquote speedy trial, nothing in the American jurisprudence system actually runs very fast. So, we could be another year or two out before we actually see anything become of this. Hopefully that answered your question. Now, as far as the migrants being potential voters, yeah, that's being fought right now at the legislative level, in the Congress in particular, but states have done some of this. They've cleaned up their voter rolls. They've gotten rid of illegal voters. Texas just did, got rid of like 1 million over the last 3 years of fraudulent registrations. And so there are some things that are happening. But again, it takes a long time for this stuff to actually filter through the system and get out. So you may not even hear from it other than the initial report of it coming out of some arbitrary news outlet or me commenting on it. You'll hear it first, and then it'll probably disappear because it'll go into essentially a black hole of not interested stuff. So, and yes, Tommy, they're not migrants. They're illegal aliens. That is correct. That is correct. Hopefully that answered your question. I just lost it where it went, but anyway, hopefully that answers all your questions. And, thank you for submitting that question of the week. All right, folks, that is it for me for tonight. I'm a little bit over, and I thank you for hanging around. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. Once you're there, find the American Perspective channel. I promise you, it's really easy to find, but find the American Perspective channel and hit that green button that says follow. You do that, and you'll be able to get notified every time I go live. We will see you Monday. Have a great rest of your weekend, but we will see you Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. I got to run off and go check out what the hell's happening with my other job, and we will talk to you on Monday. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.